Jennifer Adebanjo was the kind of girl everyone at Blue Horizon High School knew. She was the only daughter of Chief Adebanjo, one of the richest and most powerful politicians in Lagos. Her beauty was the talk of the school: long, dark hair, flawless caramel skin, and eyes that sparkled like the sun hitting clear water. Jennifer had it all: looks, brains, and the confidence to match. But she was also used to getting whatever she wanted. Whether it was the newest phone, designer shoes, or even attention from the boys in school, Jennifer never had to ask twice. Everyone wanted to be her friend or at least be in her good books. One cold Monday morning, Jennifer walked into her classroom. It was noisy. Students were laughing, talking, and passing notes to one another. Jennifer sat at her desk near the window, staring outside. Her best friend, Gift, leaned close to her. "Jennifer, have you heard?" Gift said, grinning. "Heard what?" Jennifer asked, turning to her. "A new corps member is coming to teach us. They say he's very fine." Gift giggled. Jennifer rolled her eyes. "How do you even know that? Maybe he's not even fine at all." Before Gift could answer, the classroom door opened. The noise stopped as everyone turned to look. A tall, handsome man walked in. He had smooth caramel skin and a kind smile. He wore the khaki uniform of NYSC, and he looked very confident. "Good morning, class," he said in a calm voice. "My name is Mr. Anthony. I will be teaching you mathematics." Jennifer felt her heart skip a beat. She didn't know what was happening to her, but she couldn't stop staring. Damn. He really is fine, she thought. She wasn't the only one thinking that. The girls in the class started whispering and giggling again. "Jennifer, look at him," Gift said in a low voice. "He's so cute." Jennifer couldn't say a word. She just kept staring at Anthony as he started teaching. He spoke clearly and explained things so well that even the dullest students understood. From that day on, Anthony became the center of attention at Blue Horizon High School. Girls whispered about him in the hallways, giggling whenever he walked by. Even some of the female teachers seemed to take a special interest in him. But none of that mattered to Jennifer. For the first time in her life, she felt something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just that Anthony was handsome, there was something about the way he carried himself. He was calm, confident, and seemed completely unaware of how much attention he was getting. Jennifer wasn't used to being ignored. She was the queen of the school, the senior girl everyone noticed. But Anthony treated her the same way he treated everyone else, with kindness, but nothing more. After school, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about Anthony. She had always been the most admired girl at Blue Horizon High School. She was beautiful, rich, and confident. But Anthony hadn't looked at her like everyone else did. He treated her like just another student. "I'll make him notice me," Jennifer said to herself that night. The next morning, Jennifer got ready for school with extra care. She had instructed the house help to iron her uniform perfectly and polished her shoes until they shone. She even applied some makeup, something she rarely did. At school, she made sure to sit in the front row of Anthony's class. During the lesson, she raised her hand to answer every question. After the class ended, she stayed back while the other students left. "Sir," she said, standing by his desk, "I really enjoyed your class today. You explained the equation so well." Anthony smiled politely. "Thank you, Jennifer. I'm glad you found it helpful." Jennifer's heart raced. I also need help with the topic. I didn't understand everything." Anthony looked at her. "All right, let me explain again." He spent a few minutes going over the lesson while Jennifer nodded and smiled. But to her disappointment, Anthony's tone was professional, not personal. He didn't seem to find her attractive. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer's attempts to win Anthony's attention became more obvious. She volunteered for every activity he supervised and made sure to dress her best whenever she knew he'd be around. She even baked a cake for him on his birthday and delivered it to his office with a shy smile. "Thank you, Jennifer," Anthony said warmly, taking the cake. "That's very thoughtful of you." Her heart fluttered at his smile, but when he added, "You should focus on your studies now," the flutter turned into a painful blow. One evening, she lingered outside his office door, clutching a notebook. She rehearsed her words repeatedly, summoning the courage to confess her feelings once and for all. Finally, she knocked. "Come in," Anthony's voice called. Jennifer stepped inside, her heart pounding. Anthony looked up from his desk, surprised. "Jennifer? It's late. What are you doing here?" She closed the door behind her and took a deep breath. "Sir, I need to tell you something." Anthony set down his pen, sensing her seriousness. "What is it?" "I like you," Jennifer blurted out, her voice trembling. "I've liked you since the first day you came to this school." Anthony leaned back in his chair, his expression soft but firm. "Jennifer, I appreciate your honesty, but this isn't appropriate. You're a student, and I'm your teacher. Nothing can ever happen between us." Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "But why? I'm not a child, and I know what I want." Anthony sighed. "Jennifer, you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. I can't and won't take advantage of you. Besides, I have a girlfriend I love very much." His words felt like a slap. Jennifer's cheeks burned with humiliation. Without another word, she stormed out of the office, her vision blurred by tears. She felt rejected, hurt, and confused. How could he not like her? She was beautiful, had a perfect body, and came from a rich family. What more did he want? The rejection didn't stop Jennifer. If anything, it made her more determined. She began to obsess over Anthony, watching his every move and trying to find ways to win his attention. One day, Jennifer and Gift went to the mall. They were laughing and looking at clothes when Jennifer suddenly froze. Across the walkway, she saw Anthony holding hands with a young woman. They were laughing and looked so happy together. Is that his girlfriend?" Jennifer asked, her voice shaking. Gift looked and nodded. "Yes, that's her. Her pictures are plastered on all of his social media handles. She's very pretty." Jennifer's chest tightened. Jealousy and anger boiled inside her. How dare he look so happy with someone else? That night, Jennifer lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She was lost in thought. Anthony's words from the other day kept echoing in her mind, "You're a student, Jennifer, and I have a girlfriend I love." She had never been rejected before, never. Everyone adored her, from her classmates to her teachers, but Anthony, the one person she wanted, had turned her down. Her chest burned with anger and frustration. How could he choose someone else over me? What does she have that I don't? She wondered. Later that night, Gift called to check on her. "Jennifer, are you okay? You had been quiet since we saw Mr. Anthony at the mall." Jennifer's voice was cold. "I'm fine, Gift. Don't worry about me." But she wasn't fine. She was boiling with anger and rejection. She couldn't understand why Anthony would choose someone else over her. Her thoughts became darker with each passing day. "If he won't be mine," she whispered to herself one night, "then he doesn't deserve to be happy." Her obsession had now turned into something far more dangerous, a burning desire for revenge. Anthony sat at his desk, scattered with piles of papers. It had been a long day, and he was eager to finish grading the last set of assignments. The school building was silent, save for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. Most of the students and staff had left for the day. Unknown to him, Jennifer was lingering outside his door, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and determination. She had spent days obsessing over her plan, fueled by the shame of rejection and the pain of seeing Anthony with his girlfriend. Today was the day she would make him pay. She inhaled deeply, then knocked on the door. "Come in," Anthony called, without looking up from his papers. Jennifer entered, her steps deliberate. Anthony glanced up and frowned. "Jennifer? What are you doing here so late? Shouldn't you be home by now?" "I needed to talk to you," Jennifer replied, her voice trembling slightly. Anthony sighed, setting down his pen. "We've already talked about this. You shouldn't be here. Go home. Jennifer ignored his words and closed the door behind her, locking it quietly. Anthony's brows furrowed in confusion. Jennifer, what are you? Before he could finish, Jennifer stepped closer, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Why can't you love me? She whispered, her voice breaking. Anthony rubbed his temples, clearly uncomfortable. Jennifer, I've explained this to you. You're a student, and I have someone I care about. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Her face twisted with anger. You think I'm not good enough for you? Is that it? That's not what I said, Anthony replied, keeping his tone calm. But this conversation is inappropriate, and it needs to end now. Jennifer stared at him for a moment, then took a step back. Fine, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Just as Anthony began to relax, thinking she might finally leave, Jennifer did something he could never have expected. She screamed. A piercing, blood-curdling scream that echoed through the empty hallways. Anthony shot to his feet, alarmed. Jennifer. What are you doing? Stop this. But she didn't stop. Instead, she grabbed the front of her blouse and ripped it, exposing her shoulders. Tears streamed down her face as she shouted, "Help! Somebody help me! He tried to touch me." Anthony froze in disbelief, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to find the words. What are you saying? Jennifer, stop this nonsense. The commotion quickly attracted attention. Teachers and students who were still on the premises came running, their faces a mix of confusion and alarm. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered outside Anthony's office. What's going on here? Mr. Pascal, the school's vice principal, demanded as he pushed through the crowd. Jennifer collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. He tried to force himself on me, she cried, pointing a trembling finger at Anthony. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Mr. Pascal turned to Anthony, his expression dark. Is this true? No. Anthony shouted, his voice firm but desperate. She's lying. I would never. Liar. Jennifer screamed, cutting him off. He locked the door and told me not to scream. I was so scared. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder. Anthony looked around, his heart sinking as he saw the disbelief and judgment in their eyes. You have to believe me, he pleaded. This isn't true. I didn't do anything to her. But no one was listening. Within hours, the police arrived. Jennifer's father, a powerful politician, was already on the scene, his face a mask of rage. How dare you lay your dirty hands on my daughter, he shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at Anthony. Sir, I didn't do anything, Anthony said, his voice breaking. This is all a misunderstanding. But Jennifer's father wasn't interested in hearing his side of the story. Take him away, he ordered the officers. The cold steel of handcuffs bit into Anthony's wrists as he was dragged away, the jeers and whispers of the onlookers following him like a dark cloud. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How had his life taken such a sudden and devastating turn? Back at home, Jennifer sat in her room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was streaked with dried tears, and her chest felt heavy. The reality of what she had done was beginning to sink in. She had destroyed a man's life with a single lie. He deserved it, she told herself, but the words rang empty. Gift called later that night, her voice uneasy. Jennifer, what have you done? Everyone is talking about it. Jennifer's grip on her phone tightened. I did what I had to do, she replied, her tone defensive. This isn't right, Gift said. You've gone too far. Jennifer ended the call abruptly, not wanting to hear Gift's judgment. She curled up on her bed, trying to convince herself that she had done the right thing. But deep down, a seed of guilt had already taken root. In the dark, damp confines of a prison cell, Anthony sat on the cold floor, his head in his hands. His life as he knew it was over. His girlfriend, Titi, had visited him once, only to tell him that she couldn't handle the shame and was leaving him. His family, too, had distanced themselves, unable to bear the scandal. Only his mother stood by him, visiting every week and reminding him to stay strong. But even her support wasn't enough to ease the weight of despair that pressed down on him. "Why, Jennifer," he whispered to himself, his voice hoarse. "Why would you do this to me?" Unknown to him, the storm that had uprooted his life was only just beginning. The prison gates slammed shut behind Anthony, the metallic noise echoing through the yard. He stood still, gripping the small bag of belongings handed to him during his release. 10 solid years had passed since the day his life was stolen by a lie, but the pain and anger felt as fresh as ever. His once bright eyes now carried the weight of betrayal, loss, and longing for justice. He stared at the towering walls one last time. "I'll never forget what happened here," he thought. "But I won't let this be the end of my story." Anthony's first stop was a modest cemetery, where he stood before a simple grave marker. His mother's name was etched into the stone, a harsh reminder of the love he'd lost while locked away. He knelt, placing a small bouquet of white flowers on the grave. "I'm free now, Mum," he whispered, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. You believed in me when no one else did. I promised to make something of myself, to prove that your faith in me wasn't wasted." As he stood to leave, an older man approached him. It was Baba Ali, a fellow inmate who had become both a mentor and a father figure to Anthony during his time in prison. Baba Ali had been released months earlier, but had promised to keep an eye on Anthony once he was out. "You're finally free," Baba Ali said. "What's your plan now?" Anthony clenched his fists. "I want justice. I want her to feel the pain she caused me." Baba Ali nodded solemnly. "I understand your anger, but revenge is a dangerous path. Focus on building your life first. With success, the truth will shine brighter than any act of vengeance." Anthony respected Baba Ali's wisdom. Over the years, the older man had taught him valuable skills, financial strategies, business intelligence, and the art of patience. Anthony took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll do just that." With Baba Ali's guidance, Anthony moved to a bustling city and threw himself into rebuilding his life. Armed with knowledge, skills, and a little financial support from Baba Ali, he began working tirelessly. He saved a lot of money and invested in real estate, ventured into e-commerce, and even dabbled in tech startups. Within 2 years and a few months, Anthony's fortunes transformed dramatically. He went from living in a tiny rented apartment to owning luxury properties across the country. He became a multi-millionaire, his name quietly rising in circles of wealth and influence. Despite his growing success, Anthony never forgot the betrayal that had landed him in prison. He hired a team of tech experts to hack into every camera that he could use to monitor Jennifer, the girl who had destroyed his life. He even hired a private investigator to track her. He wanted things he could use to destroy her life, same way she destroyed his. Jennifer, now in her late 20s, had grown into a polished young woman. She worked at her father's university, where she managed various initiatives. Outwardly, her life seemed perfect, but Anthony's investigators revealed a different story. Behind closed doors, Jennifer carried a heavy burden of guilt. She had spent years haunted by the memory of Anthony's broken expression as he was dragged away in handcuffs. She had tried to bury the guilt under the facade of a perfect life, but it lingered like a shadow. Anthony observed her life from a distance, piecing together her routine and struggles. One day, while reviewing surveillance footage of her, he noticed something unexpected: Jennifer sitting alone in her bedroom, clutching a photo of her younger self. She whispered to the photo, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Anthony. I ruined your life. I was young, stupid, and selfish. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I can't forgive myself." Anthony leaned back in his chair, stunned. For years, he had imagined her living happily, unbothered by the pain she had caused. But here she was, visibly broken, carrying a guilt that seemed to weigh as heavily on her as his anger weighed on him. Baba Ali's voice echoed in his mind: "Revenge is a dangerous path. Focus on healing yourself first." For the first time since his release, Anthony felt conflicted. His thirst for revenge had driven him for so long, but now he didn't know if he wanted to continue down that road. Anthony stood in his luxurious apartment, staring at the city lights below, but his mind wasn't on the bustling world outside. It was back in that dark place, the prison, the lies, the years stolen from him. Anger still cooked gently deep within, but something else began to stir, a strange sense of calm mixed with an ache in his heart. He had spent months spying on Jennifer and her family, gathering information about her life, watching her from afar. At first, it was purely about revenge, finding ways to make her suffer, to pay for what she had done. But now, after seeing her tears, her quiet struggles, and the heaviness in her eyes, Anthony felt something new, pity, maybe even sadness. One evening, Anthony's phone buzzed with a notification. A video had just been uploaded, a live stream from Jennifer's charity event. She stood on a stage, addressing a group of young students. Her voice, once filled with pride and power, now quivered as she spoke. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," Jennifer said softly, looking out at the crowd. "But if you could find it in your hearts to forgive me, I would carry that grace with me forever. I was selfish once, and because of that, I caused someone's life to crumble. I accused a young man of a wrong he never committed. I can't erase my mistakes, but I can work every day to make things right." Anthony's fingers tightened around his phone. He watched as tears ran down Jennifer's face, as she struggled to hold back the sobs. Her words, spoken from a heart weighed down by regret, hit Anthony in a way he hadn't expected. He realized that her pain was real, that the guilt had been eating away at her for years. The next morning, Anthony drove to the outskirts of the city, to a small, quiet park where they had arranged to meet. He had contacted Jennifer via her Instagram account. He hadn't told anyone about this, the detectives he hired, his friends, or even Baba Ali. This was something he had to figure out on his own. The park was quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children. Anthony sat on a wooden bench, staring at the lake. His heart was heavy, but he couldn't deny the pull that had brought him here. Jennifer approached hesitantly. Her once confident demeanor was replaced by a shadow of vulnerability. She stood a few steps away, unsure of how to begin. "Anthony," her voice broke the silence, trembling. He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. "You wanted to talk. Go ahead." Jennifer swallowed hard, tears already brimming in her eyes. I don't even know where to start. I know saying sorry isn't enough. It'll never be enough." Anthony leaned back, his gaze fixed on her. "You're right. It's not." She flinched at his bluntness, but pressed on. "I've carried this guilt for 10 years. Every day, I think about what I did to you, the life I took from you. And her voice cracked as tears streamed down her face. "I wanted to tell the truth back then. I swear I did. But my father," she paused, struggling to find the words. "What about your father?" Anthony asked, his tone sharp. "He told me to keep quiet," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "He said admitting the truth would affect his deputy governorship campaign. He couldn't afford the scandal of being the father of a girl who lied about something so serious. He promised it would all blow over, that it was for the best." Anthony's hands tightened into fists. "So you let me rot in prison to protect your father's political dreams?" Jennifer nodded, her shoulders shaking. "I was scared, Anthony. I was only 17. I didn't know how to stand up to him. And then, when I saw what happened to you, I couldn't undo it. I couldn't fix it." Anthony stood, towering over her. "You had 10 years, Jennifer. 10 years to come forward. But you didn't." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know I failed you. And I will never forgive myself for it." There was silence between them, heavy and suffocating. Jennifer's cries filled the void, and Anthony turned away, his mind a gathering of emotions. For years, he had dreamed of this moment. He had imagined confronting her, making her feel the same pain he had endured. But now, standing before her, he felt tired. The hatred that had fueled him for so long felt hollow. Jennifer, he said finally, his voice softer. Do you know what prison taught me? She shook her head, unable to meet his eyes. It taught me that revenge doesn't heal. I spent so many nights thinking of ways to make you suffer. But no matter how much I planned, it didn't bring me peace. It only made the pain worse. Jennifer looked up, her tear-streaked face filled with confusion. So, what are you saying? Anthony sighed. I'm saying that I'm done with hate. I've lost too much of my life already. My mother, my future, my dreams. I can't keep losing. Forgiving you doesn't mean I'll forget what you did. But it means I won't let it control me anymore. Jennifer fell to her knees, her cries echoing in the stillness of the park. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. Anthony bent beside her, his voice calm but firm. You're right. You don't. But forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about me choosing to let go of the pain. Jennifer looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're forgiving me? Yes, he said simply. Because I want to move on, and because holding on to this hate will only destroy me. She broke down completely, her cries raw and unrestrained. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to atone for her sins. Anthony stood and began to walk away, leaving Jennifer crumpled on the ground. He didn't look back, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. Forgiveness hadn't been easy, but it was the only way forward. As he reached the edge of the park, he stopped and turned his face toward the sky. A tear slid down his cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. It was the release of a decade's worth of pain. For both Anthony and Jennifer, the journey wasn't over. But for the first time, there was a chance for healing, a chance to start again. Thank you for staying till the end. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.